So, what is procrastination? What does it actually mean? Well, if you look at it quite simply, it means about putting things off. And the Greeks actually came up with the word procrastination. Akristia it was called. And basically, the definition of akristia was the act against our better judgment by doing one thing even though we know we should be doing something else. So the act, the doing against our better judgment, as in our better judgment, by doing one thing even though we should be doing something else. So why procrastination then? Why do we have procrastination, or why do we fall into that trap? And is it a good thing sometimes? I think actually sometimes putting stuff off is a good thing. I certainly know if I put things off and I have a deadline, I get them done and I get them over the line. They might not be the best work I do, but I certainly get it done and get it, going. So can it be a good thing? Well, when we do procrastinate, there are some negative associations with it. So, for example, that feel of failure, that self-doubt. Can I do this? Can I finish this? Can I get this done? Do I have the skills? Or I'm not used to being able to do this. I'm decisive anyway. I'm very good at this sort of thing. That feel of failure and that self-doubt comes in with procrastination. We often link it also to doing activities to pain and pleasure. And we've all heard about, the pain and pleasure idea where, we avoid pain and we try and seek out pleasure. We try and avoid the bad stuff and we seek out the good stuff. Some people also talk about procrastination and they procrastinate because in their head, their belief is that you can't be creative in the moment. You have to, you can be creative in the moment, but you can't force the idea and you can't, do the task when you're being forced to do it. You need time to let it flow. And I think that's actually quite true. I think one of the key issues with procrastination is that people confuse with perfectionism and try and do it perfect all the time. And I certainly myself, that's used to stop me a lot. When I used to write and I used to, do presentations, I used to get worried about spelling. I used to get worried about grammar. I'm still not good with that apostrophe, as some people in the room and who are watching this know. But they remind me, so that's absolutely fine. Also with procrastination, I think it's got a lot to do with the body clock, and Dean talks a lot about the body clock and how, sometimes you're motivated to do things and sometimes you're not. And again, I've had to learn that over the years. And I've found actually getting up in the morning early and getting on with the task for about an hour, grabbing a cup of coffee, even sitting in my pajamas and doing it at the computer, I get loads done. And the last thing I think why people procrastinate is because they see a huge, enormous job in front of them. So, for example, people might be at this time, I know some people who are watching this are writing a book. It's a huge task, but if it's broken down, it's a lot easier. Or, people try and learn a new skill. So, for example, learning Spanish. You can't learn Spanish overnight, but, what you can do is learn a few words every day, or you can have conversation. And, for the people that are learning sign language, currently in the How to Be Brilliant group and the 17 group and other groups on the internet, that learning sign language is a great tool to have, but you do it, signs at one time and you learn the language that way. So what's the science behind this? So some people say there's a science of procrastination. Well, I'd like to talk about the present bias. And the present bias is basically when you set a goal in the future, but you want to be yourself in the now, and our minds will try and always to do the short term to gain pleasure and avoid pain. So, for example, I'm in the present now. I've got a task to do, an activity to do. However, there's a film on Netflix that's only half an hour. It's only a little film. It's not gonna worry me. I can do the other thing later. So I'll just spend half an hour and then I'll be ready to do it. That is the present bias. And a lot of us try and live in the present bias to avoid that pain. And then the problem with that is, of course, is the present bias becomes a habit. So if you imagine a field, when I go walking, I walk across a public pathway in a field. And when the farmer plants the field, he doesn't sort of stop for the public pathway, because basically you can't stop the tractor. He just mows, or he plants the seed, and you'll slowly see the plants grow, or the hay grow. But people walk along this track, and that you'll see a natural space in the field, and basically that means that's the easiest path to go along. And that's what happens when you live in the present bias. You keep going and keep doing the same things, and it becomes a habit, and then it becomes a habit not to do something or avoid that. So I've talked very briefly there about the science. If you want to go on the internet, there's loads of books, and there's loads of things about habits, and there's loads of things about what to do. About the why of procrastination. But let's do the 5 tips, the 5 strategies that I've adopted and researched and used, that I use every day. And please do pop in the chat, and please don't forget to like as well. Pop in the chat, even if you're watching now or watch another time, so other people can benefit from your insights to this. But my first number 1 strategy is break down the steps. Think of tasks rather than projects, and do take that time to plan it out. Have that end in mind, but plan backwards till you get to that point. So I'm sure a lot of people will be thinking about New Year's resolutions or goals that they want to do, and you've got the end goal. Well, look at what tasks you need to get to that end goal, rather than it in one big chunk. Number 2 is to reward yourself. Reward yourself when you complete the task. After you've had the task, give yourself a little treat. Have some Smarties or whatever is your the thing that's going to give you pleasure. So you're avoiding that pain of not doing it, and you're getting the pleasure, instant pleasure to do it. Try and improve the experience of what you're doing when you're completing the track. Listen to some music that's not going to put you off. Change your environment. Ask yourself, is there a different way to do this? So use rewards for completing those tasks. My next point is something called use Parkinson's law. Now, I'm not talking about that guy who used to sit on a couch and interview people. I'm talking about the actual law that scientists have come up with, which basically says that work expands to fill an allotted time. So if you've got 2 hours to do it, the law says, Parkinson's law said, you will fill those 2 hours with that activity. So the little trick I do is I decrease my time and give myself false deadlines to complete things. So if I know, if I've got 2 hours, I might say, no, actually, I'm going to do it in an hour and a half. And then I try and work my best to get to the hour and a half and play a little game with myself, actually. Try and beat the clock. The trick with this one is not to be too aggressive with yourself. Because if you're putting false deadlines on and they're too short, or you're not going to achieve them, and you're not going to play the game, that you put stress on yourself. So try and avoid that. Number 3 with procrastination is to avoid those. Number 4, not 3. Number 3 was Parkinson's law. Number 4 was environment. I can't do 2 things at once when I'm talking, so this is number 4, environment. Think about distractions. Craft your work environment so it minimizes distractions and those impulsivities. So, put the phone on airplane mode, switch your notifications off, unplug the internet. What I found really, really useful when I'm doing this type of thing is to make sure my screen, and you can't see my screen here, but my screens are on full. So on the product, I use Apple, so there's a little green button that can make the screen maximize. So there's no other screens. And I've only got here, I've got the screen where I can see people's comments, because I've got 2 screens, which is fantastic. 2 screens are great, by the way. Get 2 screens. And then I've also got my notes on my computer here where the camera is, and my new microphone. And I hope the new microphone is working. Please tell me if it's better than it has been before. So you get rid of all those things, get rid of the remote controls and get ready for action. I'll tell you a little quick story about remote controls. For the people that don't know, I worked on a summer camp in America. I was the camp director for a summer camp that specifically worked with children with attention deficit disorder. And we had 220 kids all summer, and we had an amazing time. And what we used to do before the camp started in America, the parents would pack up their kids' clothes into big trunks, those big American trunks, okay? So those American trunks where basically, you put all the stuff in, and they used to send it and used to ship it to camp. So the kids' clothes would arrive and all their stuff would arrive before the kids came. We then unpacked them and got it ready for when the kids came, because when they came to their own environment. It was all done for them. Later on when they were older, we taught them to do themselves. But one of the most funniest things that happened was we opened one of these trunks, and in the trunk, the young camper put all the remote controls and all the portable telephones. It was from that time, when you had portable telephones, basically. Put them all in the trunk, and they were sent to camp. Now, these trunks used to take like 10 days to arrive. So we opened the trunk and called the parents, said, "Are you missing anything in the house? Are you missing anything?" And the parents said, "Yeah, we can't find the phones." And then they said, "Well, we can't find the remote controls for the TVs and we can't do anything." So we had the remote controls and TVs and phones for 10 days. But what was interesting, the parents said they got so much done in that time when they didn't have the phones going, or they didn't have the distraction of the TV. They went out and exercised. They did lots of different things rather than being sucked into that, sitting in front of the TV with the remote control. So I thought that was really interesting. So that was about the environment, changing the environment. Also, one of the things you might want to do with procrastination is to get yourself going, which is about tip number 5, is basically have stuff ready. So if you're going to go for a run in the morning, have your gym clothes by your bed. So you get out your bed, your gym clothes, and you get off and done. Or have things set up ready for a job. So what I'll often do is, if I've got a job to do, like, Hoover or something like that, although I have bought a robotic Hoover now and they are brilliant, buy a robotic Hoover, ask Father Christmas or for your birthday for a robotic Hoover. They're amazing. But, put the Hoover in the middle of the room so you got to do it. Or if you are going to cook a meal, put the ingredients you can put out and the utensils ready so you can get prepared. So this goes with tip number 5. It's about knowing yourself. So, when do you work best? Do you overcomplicate things? Do you get an iPad Pro with a lovely pencil? I've got one, they're great. But actually, could you have done it with a pad and a piece of paper? Can you use dictation rather than writing? Ask yourself, are you a morning or an evening person? And certainly I'm a morning person now. I get up and do things, and then I relax in the evenings. I didn't used to be. That's changed over time. So this tip number 5 is about understanding your own motivations. What's going to get you going? What's going to get you over that first step to get you over the line? This is called the flywheel effect. So, a flywheel is a little wheel that you need to turn that gets the bigger wheel going. And you do the little wheel quickly, and the big wheel will start to go on its own fruition and go around. And that's called the flywheel effect. So tip number 5 is ask yourself, what is your flywheel? What's the small thing that's going to get the big thing done? And for me, the flywheel effect has been my key sort of motivational learning with regard to stopping procrastination. I use some little tips to get the flywheel going. So David Allen talks about the 2-minute rule. So basically says, if you can do it in 2 minutes, just get it done. Do it now. Michael tells us to do it, has told us in the book 17, do it now, get it done. So I have the 2-minute rule, and then I have the 5-minute rule. And that's a bit of a trick on my brain that basically says, well, why don't you just do 5 minutes of this task and then see what happens? So just do 5 minutes of writing that letter, or 5 minutes of washing up, or 5 minutes of painting the fences. And you'll find that those 5 minutes turn into 10 minutes, 20 minutes, etc. And then I talked about in my last video about using the Pomodoro technique. And the Pomodoro technique is using a 25-minute time slots. That's a great technique to get things done. So my call to action for you guys today is, what is your flywheel? Work out what that little flywheel is for your next task, and work out what's going to get you going, and it's going to give you motivation and increase your momentum. So my 5 quick steps that I've talked about today is break it down, think about rewards, pain and pleasure, use the Parkinson law, fill the time or reduce the time. Use your environment and know yourself, know your motivations and momentum.